Welcome to the Growth League podcast, where we interview business owners who have experienced quantum leap growth in their business. In each episode, we're going to dive deep into our guests' firsthand experience about what it was like 90 days before and 90 days after that point when their business started experiencing massive growth. I am here with my guest, Shawn Freeman, from what is now Fully Managed, but you originally founded TWT Group a number of years ago, which is a fully managed IT services company here in town. Experienced a lot of growth. My first engagement with you was listening into a little bit about your growth journey and the way you managed TWT, the staff, the culture, the strategy in EO. So I got an opportunity to hear about your story, and it was awesome, and I've been kind of following you ever since. And then you fully merged with Fully Managed in February of 2020, which is a very interesting time. So, Shawn, thanks for being here, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me on the podcast. It's a great opportunity. So, and it has been a year, definitely lots of ups and downs, and I think everybody can relate. So, in your bio, and I'm not sure if you wrote this or had someone help you with it, but I love it. You're an entrepreneur, you're a geek, self-proclaimed geek, a boundary pusher. You're a fan of being productive but not busy. I want to dig into that a little bit. And you're a lover of technology. So if you can bring us back, let me give you a little bit of context first about what the podcast is all about. It's all about digging into the stories of growth. The podcast is called The Growth League, and it's all about understanding, what was going on at that time, or those times where you were starting to experience like more of hockey stick level growth. What was happening 6 months before, or 6 months after. And it's never one tipping point. I think we all acknowledge that. But before we get into that, I want you to bring us back to the origin story of TWT. How did it get started? Tell us about that. Yeah, for sure. No, so I kicked off TWT in 2011. Seems like forever ago. It's almost a decade now. But yeah, back then, I was, prior to kicking it off, I was working in oil and gas, and I was fairly young and pretty ambitious, and just kind of saw like, okay, if I keep working here, this, I'm only going to get so far. And, I'm really passionate about technology, really enjoy that stuff, helping solve problems and create new things. And so it just made sense. I kind of said to myself one day, what's the worst that could happen? I get another job, and things were good in 2011. We were kind of doing pretty well after the 2008 downturns. So I said, great, there's opportunity out there if this doesn't work out. So little did I know another recession was coming. So good thing it did work out. It was actually an opportune time. I think all downturns are actually pretty good times to start businesses, because people are looking for new, better, cheaper, more efficient ways to do things. And obviously that's what technology does, is try to find new, better, efficient ways to do things, right? So totally. So yeah, in 2011, maybe I'll give you the history of the name. I was a little frustrated in my job, and just sitting at my desk talking to a colleague one day, and I was like, I could do a lot better and be a lot happier working Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday.
No way.
And so that's where TWT came from. At first I was trying to find a different name, and I was like, I can't name it TWT, right? That's just silly. But then we couldn't find something better. We couldn't brainstorm something better. We took, a week or two just thinking about different things. And I just said, all right, let's just stick with it. And we came up with, a nice marketing spin on it. Technology, Wisdom, Trust is what we called it. But we told most of our clients the backstory, because, we had really good relationships with them, and they all laughed, and, they get it, right? They buy into your story. They understand why you're doing what you're doing. And that's a part of it. So that was pretty cool. We, over the 8.5 years that we grew the company until we merged with Fully Managed, we went from just myself to, I think, 22 or 23 people come, January, February this year. It's all about, like, for me, the growth is just having that foresight and saying, okay, here's where we are now. here's what we've done. We've grown 40% this year. What's the next 18 months look like? And a lot of people like to look 12 months out. I'm a big fan of looking 18 months out because, if you need to be somewhere in 12 months, you need to, start hiring and start putting processes in place over the next 3 to 6 months, right? It's just like staffing. Like I always ask myself, like, what's the team I need in 6 months? Because it's going to take you 6 months to find the right people, get them trained, and get them rolling in 6 months, right? It's going to take you about that amount of time. So, but with like looking at the whole business, that timeline's a little bit longer, right? So I always kind of looked out, and part of that is just planting the seeds, right? We always worked collaboratively with like local competitors, shared ideas, just to kind of raise all the ships and make everybody better. And didn't cost us anything. And we got some good friendships, good relationships, and one of those just ended up being fully managed, right? Like they were based out of Vancouver at the time I met them, but I probably met them about 4 or 5 years ago, probably 5 now at least, and just said, hey, let's just connect and see how we're both doing things, share ideas, and with maybe the future there's an opportunity, right? And there was, and so it was kind of nice just like knowing the people before we even started talking about the deal, right?
Right.
Knowing that they're good people, right?
So that brings up a point that I've been thinking about a lot, is that, as it relates to quote unquote competitors in the same space, you can kind of have a predisposition towards scarcity or abundance, right? And in this case, I think that you had your abundance hat on, which initiated some conversations, sharing notes or whatever, and then, see what happened because of it, right? So yeah. Is that typically how you've operated from day one in terms of the pie is big enough?
It's not. I can't claim that I knew that at the very beginning. I think, it's just another skill you learn, another fear you overcome, right? Because that's what it is. It's a fear of like, hey, if I share an idea with my competitor, are they going to take all my clients, right? And I got to the point where I realized like our clients are just relationships.
Yeah.
Like they work with us because they like us, and they trust us, and we do a good job, and we care. I could tell my competitors all my secrets. Yeah. And as long as I have those things with my clients, they're not even going to think about changing, right? Yeah. Even if it's a little cheaper, right? Like a lot of people, if you're competing on price, you should look at what you're doing because that's the wrong way to do it. Yeah, totally. I don't really care what market you're in. Even the most, price war riddled commoditized markets still have relationships behind them. Right. And I think the people that you find that are most successful focus on that piece.
Right.
And because when you do that, you can find more opportunity to create more value for the client.
Yeah.
And that's what they're looking for.
For sure. So when you started TWT back in 2011, was it because of one specific client that sort of showed up on your radar, or did you start it and then go out and try to harvest from there? What was the decision like, let's do this?
Yeah, I mean, kind of back then, I was in IT, and I had a few friends that were like, hey, can you help me with my tech in your free time, right? Like I have a company, just need some basic stuff. Can you help me out? So I had a few of those relationships that I had going, and obviously that kind of got the ball rolling. I mean, you got to start somewhere. It's scary when you're 26 years old and you're like, well, I'm going to quit my perfectly good job to go make $0 and try to build this up from nothing. So I did have a few of those kind of set up and working, and I'd help them out in my lunch and after work, and that's all they really needed. But it was enough to kind of prove the idea, right? And get some feedback too, right? I told them like, hey, this is new to me, so if you have any suggestions, and they did, right? And they let me know like, hey, if you could make it, an easy like fixed fee for me, that'd be great. And so I put that together. Like back in 2011, the managed IT services space, there was very, very few people out there doing like here's your fixed fee for your contract. It was a lot of people were hourly still. Nobody used Office 365 because it wasn't very reliable back then. It's great now.
Yeah.
The technology, it's just evolved, and so has the industry. I think we're sort of entering those golden years for the managed services. The security issues that are coming up, governments getting hacked into.
For sure.
Nobody's safe, right? So that's really highlighting the need for what we do. Because some people may say, "Oh, you fixed my computer, or my printer when it's broken," but that's like a very small piece of the pie. The big piece of the pie for us is the security piece, because if you're just leaving all your data lying around on the internet and everybody hacks into it or takes it and steals it and uses it against you, doesn't matter what your business is and if your printer's broken. So.
Is that what you guys sort of hung your hat on at the early days, security, and have continued to do that, or?
Yeah, it's a focus in everything we do. It's just the foundation, right? If you don't have that, then nothing else. Everything else is just a wish and a guess, a hope, a hope and a prayer, really.
Yeah, that's right. So, like when you started, obviously you were trying to figure out your positioning, looking at pricing, different types of clients you wanted to be a part of, or have a relationship with. Is there a memorable moment from 2011 to February of 2020 where the business changed because of some of the things you were doing? You were achieving some success, and was there a point where all of a sudden there was a bit of a hockey stick growth curve? And tell us about some scale.
Yeah, over our lifespan of about 8.5 years, you hit a point where people know you, right? They know about you. So, the first 4 years, we're just this little up and coming. Nobody really takes you seriously. Competitors, companies don't really know about you. And then you kind of get this critical mass where, okay, you've done a lot of work on branding and you've got a salesperson or two. And now people they know TWT Group. People know Fully Managed across Canada, right? Like it's a well-known brand. So we got to that point, and that was sort of where we saw okay, this is crazy. We can't keep up with as many onboardings as we're doing. We figured out a way to make it work, but that's I remember one conversation I had with somebody that I am so busy. I'm like, well, let's figure it out. Do we need to hire more people? Do we need better processes? Because it's not stopping. That's what I said. We can't just turn a dial down and clients stop coming to us, which is a great problem to have, but also you got to deal with it, right? So we figured out a way to do that. But yeah, you get to that critical mass. I think it probably took us a bit longer than it could have. But also IT people aren't very good at branding either. Typically, we're not great marketers. So I think I realized that and said, okay, I need some help. And we brought in some professionals and got some really good marketing going. And I think that really helped us along. And yeah, that's a lot of people look at it as an expense or a cost, but it's okay, you need to calculate your cost of client acquisition, and not everything can be a referral at a certain point, right? In the early years, everything was a referral. We still have a ton of referrals, but it's not 100%, right?
Yeah. A lot of our listeners have asked about or are in the process of looking at either being acquired or doing some acquisition themselves, or some merge or put a merger deal together. From it's obviously as much as you're willing to share, but talk to us a little bit about what that process was like for you. Things you learned, things that you would do differently next time, or
yeah, I mean, honestly, I consider myself and my team super fortunate. We've probably had the best experience I could have ever hoped for with a merger and integration. We're almost a year into it, and things are going great. Everybody's doing well. They're happy. They're in great new positions. So from that aspect, I mean, the reason behind that is because of all the hard work that, and that relationship building. Like I said, we met, Fully Managed, the people there, the leaders there probably 5 years ago, built those relationships up, kind of aligned ourselves, made sure values matched. Values was a very important thing. And then obviously from that flows the culture of the teams. And if those things don't match, I mean, unless you're selling and walking away, I wouldn't even look at it. Those need to really make sense and align. So that's key. And then Number two for me, just as the business owner, is just having like my plan for my life. Like, what does Shawn need to be, good? And knowing that, because I find a lot of business owners have no idea.
Right.
They know they make a good amount of money with their business, but they have no retirement plan. They have no financial idea of, if my business was sold, how long could I last? So I think figuring out that is key. And then also figuring out what your team needs, right? What's their growth objectives? Where do they want to be in 3 years? Does the merger or acquisition support that? Right? Because if that doesn't, then you're going to be losing people, and you need to plan for that if you're still going to go ahead. But obviously, I think, myself, I care about my team deeply, and I think a lot of entrepreneurs do. I think that's fairly common. So, the last thing I would want is for the merger to happen and then people be not happy, right?
Right.
People are going to be not happy up front, for sure. Like, we had people that were very concerned and worried, but it's, we've kind of showed them, like, here's why, here's the bigger picture. Everybody assumes the worst, right? They assume the world's falling apart, everybody's redundant, they're getting fired, and there's no upward mobility for them now. I think now my team, if you ask my team, I think now they'd be like, that's completely the opposite of what this is, right?
How did you roll that out to the team? Because you got to be pretty intentional and careful about that, I imagine, as well.
Yeah, I mean, we communicated it. I think every communication of a merger acquisition, you learn something. So you can't do it perfectly. I think it's really just being clear about, like, hey, here's what's going on. Here's why. It was important for me to kind of let them know, like, hey, I'm not going anywhere. Whether they believe me or not at the beginning was up for argument. Everybody's going to say that, but whether they stay around or not. I think once they realized I was sticking around, they were like, okay, this is cool. He's not just jumping off the ship and leaving us to try to steer it in the right direction. So you need to have that integration plan, right? Because that is what really matters. That's what, everything you're saying that's good, that's going to come out of this, that's where it all actually gets proven, right? And people believe the actions once they see them. So having a good communication up front, having a good communication plan, and then just the strategy to just continue that, because integration takes a long time, no matter how simple it is. And then also just, listening to the people, right? Like, we had like very frequent check-ins with everybody and said, like, what are you worried about? What doesn't make sense? What's not working? And everything they brought up, we figured out a solution and communicated it, just to make sure that they knew, like, hey, we're here to make sure that you're good and you're taken care of. Because the goal of fully managed, and we can get into that more, is we're growing, right? Like, we can't afford to lose people. We need more people, and we need more good people, right? So once they saw that, I think it was kind of, helps people accept it and realize that it's all good, that they're going to be taken care of.
Can you give us a sense of scale? Like, what are, as much as you're comfortable sharing, what are growth goals for fully managed versus kind of where TWT was before the merger? Yeah,
so we were 20 to 23 people before the merger. Fully managed, I think we've added about 30 people this year to the team. So I think in total we're on top of TWT.
Right.
So I think in total the company's about 340 employees.
Wow.
Across Canada and some in the US. I think our goal, if you ask our leadership team, in 3 years will be about 1,000. So we're planning to triple.
Wow.
In 2 to 3 years. Like, it's a significant trajectory, which was also a part of the reason I did it too, right? Like, there's just so much we can take. We can take the 22, 23 people and, become part of the fully managed family, and then triple. Like, that's insane. It creates so much opportunity for our teams, and just the places we're going to go is going to be pretty cool. So
did you guys have a specific core competency that fully managed loved about the deal, or was it a continuation or a volume increase of what was already there?
Honestly, I think there's a couple things that we had. We had a really loyal, strong client base. Like our clients love us. We do everything we can to make sure that's the same or stays the same, continued into fully managed. Like we're putting lots of resources into making sure things get improved, right? Because after an integration, your customers are worried, is service going to go down? Is this just another big company that's, poor, long wait times and stuff? Like we absolutely won't let that happen. And then number two, I think we had just strong technicians. I mean, the financials tell you everything, right? So we looked at the financials, they looked at the financials and said like, wow, this is great. Like we're doing awesome with the amount of people we have. We should be doing less. But I think that's what happens when you have people that really enjoy what they're doing. They're great at their job, and they care, right? That's, they're not just working the 40-hour work week, right? They're really doing what they need to do.
You guys, I'd imagine, implemented probably Traction, or did you guys implement that at TWT or anything from EO, and has that been able to carry over?
Yeah, so we didn't implement Traction, but we implemented the Gazelles.
The scaling up, yeah. Yeah,
scaling up a bit. Like we weren't fully implemented, but we were definitely using a lot of the things around that. With fully managed, we don't have like a specific system, but we have a company scorecard system that everybody's working towards, and their goals are aligned, just so the whole company's aligned. So yes, we do, and we have a solid management team. Like they're awesome. Like our president, Janice, she's been in the business for a long time. I want to say 15, 20 years. Our CEO, Mark Scott, he's created like tools that the whole industry uses, like SolarWinds. Like they developed the remote monitoring management tool. I think it was one of the first ones on the market.
Wow.
So he created that and sold it. The former president of Fully Managed created IT Glue, which literally 95% of IT companies use, and he sold that to Kaseya. So like we have some leaders that actually are like creating the industry and the tools that it uses, which is pretty awesome.
That's got to be pretty inspirational group to be a part of. It
is, awesome. Yeah, for sure.
So I always ask, everyone approaches it a little bit differently, but on the topic of scaling your business, whether that's, a specific revenue target or employee count, departments, whatever it is, what are, in your mind, in your perspective, what are the critical, like underlying foundational pillars that need to be there in order to even think about scaling?
For sure. I think solid values and a great team that aligns with them. Can't do anything without those. Kind of next step up on the foundation would be recurring revenue. If your business isn't recurring revenue based, you're probably not going very far. If it's not, there's so many creative ways you can get to make it creative. Subscriptions, like meal kit subscriptions, or like whatever your business is, find a way to make it recurring, because then it's more predictable. And then understand the numbers that impact your business, right? Like get into those tools like scaling up and Traction, and figure out what are the metrics of your business that actually impact things. Like if you do X, you'll get this much growth.
Right.
If you spend X to acquire clients via marketing, this is how much revenue you can expect. Like figure out those like cost of acquisition, and then focus on retention. I mean, it's the age-old saying, it's much cheaper to keep a client happy than it is to find new ones. And everybody says it, but nobody focuses on it.
Right. It's like we onboard them, and then it's like, all right, see you later. No, that's no good.
Yeah, we do. We had a director of client experience, probably at year 5, so kind of halfway through. But as soon as we did that, I think our clients realized it and were like, wow, this is even better, right? Like we were doing a good job, but it's like you also want to be like paranoid, right? Like what could we improve? There's always something. It's that Japanese like Kaizen mentality, right?
Right. That's it's so important to remember those things, because I think in this community of business owners, growth and scale is so sensationalized, and it's this is, and the desire, I think, is to get to it as quickly as possible, whether that hurts your team, it hurts your ability to be positioned correctly, versus playing the long game and doing it on the basis of foundation. So I appreciate that, that perspective. This question is all about looking back and reflecting. So 2011, you started it. So let's pretend you have 5 minutes to visit with Shawn from 2000 in like 2008 or 9. Okay. Like he's at a coffee shop or something. Maybe there's a better year, but a couple of years before the inception of TWT. And you have like 2 minutes with Shawn. What are you telling him?
So yeah, you learn a lot as an entrepreneur, right? And if I was to go back and say, start from scratch, like my 8 years, you could probably compress to 5, knowing what I know now. I think as a business owner, it's kind of, it's again, a cliche saying is like, aim for the moon. And if you miss, you'll get to the start. Like,
right.
It's sort of like aim big. I thought I was, right? But I just didn't have the perspective. I think a lot of being a first-time business owner is perspective, right? You gain a ton of perspective. And now that I have that, like I said earlier, like FM's goals are to like triple in the next couple of years. Like we never had a goal to triple as a 20-person company.
Right.
There's like slow and steady growth and all that. And so it's really just maybe open up your horizons and maybe think bigger, I think is probably an option I would do. I know I was being like super safe and super conservative as a first time owner. I had, no idea what I was doing. Didn't have a ton of confidence around a lot of things, financial,
right,
sales, marketing, all that stuff. But you figure it out, right? You find professionals, you find the experts, and you come up with the solutions.
No, that's good. I think what you said there in terms of you can't acquire that perspective unless you go through it, right? I know it sounds very, very simple, but it's like part of a business owner's mentality should be, hey man or girl, it's okay to just go with it on a day-to-day basis and not because you're acquiring stripes and stars that you can't get up. There's no other way to get them. Right.
Yep.
So.
Yeah. And it's just asking people, like, hey, am I missing something? What's my blind spot? And that's a great thing EO is for, right? Like having those conversations, and figuring out what you're missing or what you're not thinking about. Right.
Right.
If I had somebody challenge me, they're like, yeah, if I was running your business and you're a $2 million business right now, like I'd be running it as if it was a $20 million business, and and it would become one, right? Like just because of the nature of how things go, right?
Right.
I think we just don't know how much is possible. I think it's insane. You look at things like the not only the stock market but private equity, like. There's trillions and trillions of dollars in private equity money out there that like you could go and access, and you could create an IT or an app, and you could get funded pretty quick. Like there's startups that come out the gate 6 months later, they have $50 million round. Like it's insane, but like a lot of people don't even think that's possible.
Right. Right. So now that you have, successfully created the merger with Fully Managed, what's the next mountain for Shawn? Like what's your mandate now? Where are you kind of sinking your teeth into?
Yeah. So, Fully Managed, I'm still a shareholder. I'm still on the boat, and we're I guess, like I said, we're pushing towards those big goals, and I'm super excited to be a part of that and take my team along with me and help them grow. And, that's my focus. That's where I get my passion, is just seeing them get all these awesome ideas and tackle this growth challenge and create things themselves. And I'm just here to lead them and get them what they need and make sure they have everything they need. That's my focus for now, right?
Awesome. The little bit there from your LinkedIn profile, I want to ask you a couple minutes on that, is
Sure.
Productivity versus being busy. what does that mean for you?
For me, productivity. I mean, COVID's been a really weird year, and in some ways to reflect on this too, right? Because we've all gone from having 2-3 meetings a day to now we have 7, because we have 7 hours and we can do them back to back and sneak in a little washroom break in between, right?
Yeah.
So it's I think it's even accentuated it. When COVID hit, I realized people were like booking me in my calendar at times I didn't want, and I had no time to focus and all that. So I actually had to change my habits and go into my calendar and create blocks and say like, no, my Monday mornings for me to kind of get regrouped and be productive, right? And then also just figure out, like, as you scale, like, if you don't delegate, you're limited, right? You're going to scale till the point where you need to delegate. So if you're the CEO, you should, like, your only job is vision and making sure your team has what they need. Your job's not to be sending invoices out. Your job's not to be placing orders with vendors. Your job, like, none of that's your job. And if it is, then you're holding your company back, right? So you need to realize that and then prioritize, right? Like, not everything's important. There's lots of things that if you leave it long enough, they'll fix themselves.
Totally.
Especially in technology, but also in business, right? So just figuring out what's important and urgent. There's that Eisenhower matrix, right, where it's the 4 squares and you put everything in a square and you know what to focus on. Things like that are super powerful. Taking time to work on the business, not in the business, like everyone says it, but very few people do it. We were really diligent to do like quarterly strategy meetings and annual strategy meetings just to get the whole team together to spend that time. Tickets are coming in and fire's blowing up. It'd be easier not to do it, but you have to, right?
Yeah. Are you this is my last question. It's always my last question. But are you a man of habit and routine? And if so, tell us about yours. Is it the morning, afternoon, night, and what does it uncover for you in terms of clarity or productiveness?
Yeah, I think we all have habits, whether or not they're intentional or not. It's different, right? I definitely I have like a lot of things that are habit and routine, and then I have certain areas of my life where I like variety. It's you get bored and doing the same day every day, not doing anything neat. I think my mornings are really important to me. I think my routine around my mornings are huge. I really early on in entrepreneurship made a rule that I don't do any meetings before 10. So I have my morning to kind of get set up. I get, like, unlike a lot of entrepreneurs, I get like a solid 7.5, 8 hours of sleep every day. And I have for the last 10 years. There hasn't been a time, maybe if I was, had a bad day and was thinking about something, fine. Right. But I get solid sleep, whereas a lot of people, like, it's a badge they wear that they only slept 4 hours, or that's their usual, right? So I get my sleep.
Forget that noise.
Yeah. Because like I said, if you can't do that, then you're doing something wrong.
Right.
Like, you need to hire more people, or you need to prioritize better, because something else is not right, and that's not sustainable, right? But more importantly, like in my mornings, I get up, I get ready. A couple like small but important things for me are like making coffee for me and my partner, taking the dog for a walk and listening to audiobook, and then maybe get a workout in a couple times a week. And once I'm done that, I'm set up for my day, and then I can go and do whatever, right? Go eat the frog first, figure out the hard stuff first, and then off you go. But if I don't do that, my day feels panicked, and I feel like I can't think straight, and I'm not focused.
Yeah. You gotta, what do they say on the airplane? You got to fix your own mask before you fix someone else's, right?
For sure, yeah. So if you're not getting enough sleep, then those are just symptoms of a bigger problem, right? And figure that out. I mean, obviously, people are going through lots of hard times right now and might not be able to afford somebody to delegate to, but there's also there's other creative ways to do it. Sometimes just reprioritizing. We all do things that we don't need to do and that are unimportant and you just don't need to do them.
Have you done that? Have you done that exercise of, I've been trying to do it a lot more lately, where you just actively ignore something and see if it goes away. Mm-hmm. Now, you can get burnt every once in a while on that, but it's kind of like an extreme form of prioritization, but 9.5 times out of 10, it really does just go away.
For sure. And it's even further to that idea is like, there's a book called Extreme Ownership.
Yeah. Jocko.
By Jocko. Yeah. And he talks about like, if you're choosing to do one thing and own that and, prioritize it, then you're not choosing to do other things, and whether those are personal or not, or, taking care of your health, like you got to own that stuff too. Right. So.
That's awesome. Well, this has been awesome. I've wanted to connect with you for a long time because what you talked about a year and a half ago at EO really stuck with me in terms of, we were talking about culture at the time and team culture and how to build that. And from, typically you'd look at an IT company, it's not the first thing you would think of in terms of like great, amazing culture. But I mean, you just, you definitely prioritize that, and it's materialized into growth for you. And Shawn, listen, I wish you the best of luck in your new world, your new marriage with Fully Managed. I think it's awesome. I wish you guys the best. I'm glad you're going on the 3 times, 4 times, 5 times growth train, and you guys earned it. So thank you so much for being on the show.
We'll do our best. And thanks for having me. I mean, from the get-go of my business, I just wanted to build a company I wanted to work at.
Well, that seems that's a simple way to do it. Yeah, that makes sense.
That worked for my whole team, and we're still doing that. So it's great.
That's amazing.
So thank you for having me. It was a pleasure.
You bet. Good luck in the new year.
Thank you.